We're going to let you do your 2-minute introductions first, and we're going to start with David Shepard.
Hello? Okay, got me. Thank you. I know you chose me because I'm the oldest of these three people. I am David Shepard. I am a resident of Dixon, Tennessee. I've lived there almost all my life except for about 2 years when my family lived in Hickman County. I have been a state representative for the 69th District, which is a part of Murray County now, and then after the election for 12 years. I have been what I feel like a good responsive legislator. I listen to the people. I do what they ask me to do and not what I do. My father was the county agricultural extension agent in Dixon for 42 years, and he has a younger brother that's here tonight, Mr. J.B. Shepard, and his wife, Jean, who was the county agricultural agent in Murray County. And I spent several summers down here working at the 4-H Club Camp. I am delighted to be here again. I was here Mule Day, and there's a bigger crowd, I think, in here now than there was at that breakfast. I have been all over this county trying to meet people. To be honest with you, I really still am not real sure exactly where my lines are. But if your card, your voter card, says the 69th District, then you're in my district. And if you're in my district, I want to talk to you individually, and I want to try to get your vote. I have been a fairly moderate representative. I voted against the income tax my first year in Nashville, and I will tell you that a lot of the people that voted for the income tax are no longer there. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm married, 38 years. I'm a pharmacist, have 3 children, all of which are graduates of the UT system. I have one granddaughter who lives in Hawaii with my daughter, who's an architect, and her husband, and I have a son that's an engineer in Nashville and a son that's a contractor. I am delighted to have Murray County in my district. This is a natural extension of my rural area. I have Dixon County, I have Hickman County, and now I have parts of rural Murray County, and I'm glad to be here, and thank you.
Thank you. That was David Shepard, the Democratic nominee. And next will be Wayne White, the Republican nominee.
I'm Wayne White, and I also live in Dixon County. I have not been in politics. I'm in it because I'm like many of you. I'm aggravated, and I felt like that I would get in and try to make a difference. I ran 2 years ago against this same man, and we had a very fair election. It went well. Only problem is he won. I'm married, and my wife and I together have 6 children and 6 grandchildren, and one more that is due here tonight. I was born in Nashville and actually raised in Lexington, Kentucky, and I've been back in Dixon County since year 2000. One of my grandbabies that many of you have met, I call her my campaign manager. She just turned 8 years old Sunday, and I keep her involved in politics too. And she says to me, Papa, I want to talk about who president was when I was born. And I said, well, that's good. She said it was George Bush. I said, good. Do you know who it was when Papa was born? She said, oh, Papa, it had to be Abraham Lincoln. But I'm awful proud to be here tonight. I wish we could get this kind of turnout at events in Dixon County. I've been impressed by the folks and the warm feeling that I get when I meet folks in Murray County, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was Wayne White, the Republican nominee. And last but not least, Kenneth Boozer, the Independent nominee.
How y'all doing? I'm Kenneth Boozer. I live in Lyles, there in southern Hickman County. I got into this race because I really have been seeing too much split between the two parties. They don't seem to be able to get along. What our district, state, and government needs is to be physically responsible. At the same time, we need to improve our education system and strengthen our infrastructure. There's two main things we need to do with these things. One, we have to look at every department and agency in government and eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. There's only one thing the government has been especially good at, and that's wasting money. And we have to stop this. Two, we've got to put more people back to work in all 3 counties in this district. And not just jobs at fast food restaurants. We need good paying jobs that people can earn a living wage and be, feel better about themselves. In turn, this will help the government. It will give us more money to work on what problems we do have. And I appreciate y'all's vote. I'd like to meet as many as I can afterwards. You can give me a call or email me, and I'll be glad to return any calls. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Kenneth Boozer, independent nominee. And now we're ready for our first question. We drew backstage for the order, and they will go in the same order that they did their introductions. So the first question is for you, Mr. Shepherd. And it is 2A, which is on your sheet up there. Should Tennessee expand TennCare to cover uninsured individuals as it was anticipated through the Affordable Care Act? Please explain why you would or would not support this expansion.
There we go. I think I'll just leave it on. If we expand TennCare, currently we have 1.2 million people on the Medicaid system in Tennessee, which is TennCare. If we expand it to all those people who would qualify if there's a new limit proposed, and I think there is in the Affordable Care Act, it's going to be about another 300,000 people. When we get back in session, if the Affordable Care Act stays in place the way it's currently written, there's a lot of work that the state is going to have to do about the insurance exchange program, about expansion of Medicaid, all of those things. There are many legislators that are kind of nervously anticipating hopefully getting reelected and being chosen by Governor Haslam to sit down in a bipartisan way and try to come up with what we in Tennessee feel like we need to do. I would support expansion of the Medicaid program if I'm convinced that the money will be spent wisely and it will be spent in a cost-effective manner. And I will tell you, I don't know how much time we have to answer these questions, but I will tell you the reason I ran for office is because I was angry at TennCare. I'm a pharmacist. I was working. I was not happy with the cost controls that were lacking in TennCare. And so I decided, after my wife prodded me a little bit, that I would run and do something about my anger. And I was able to, in the first 4 years in Nashville, propose 3 bills, which I was the prime sponsor of, that saved the state in excess of $400 million on the TennCare program. So I understand it. I do support it, but I also understand it has limitations that we need to watch closely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Next, Mr. White.
Of course, David is in the field, so he is very familiar with it. But the Affordable Care Act is so thick that I don't think anybody completely understands it. I don't even think it's constitutional. And I'm not in favor of the Affordable Care Act as a mandate. And the Supreme Court decided that it's going to be a tax. We're going to make a tax out of it. Well, I'm taxed enough, and I'm sure you are too, so I would not support that.
Thank you, Mr. White. And Mr. Boozer.
The Affordable Care Act is hardly affordable. From the studies that Haslam's office and some others have done, from the years 2014 to 2019, the Affordable Care Act is going to cost the state of Tennessee alone between $716 million and $1.2 billion. I do not see where at this point we can afford such an expense. As well as, this law is unconstitutional. There are parts in it that are greatly against the First Amendment. They are infringing on church rights by forcing Catholics with the abortion and preventive, birth control. It states in the First Amendment this is not allowed. So we need to change health care. I agree with David on that. But we needed some people to sit down and come up with a better plan. Because this one, it's got 21 different taxes in it. We are taxed to death at this right now. So I'm totally against this at this time.
Okay, Mr. Shepherd, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. Your question was, are we for the Affordable Care Act? I don't think. I think your question was, in Tennessee, would I favor the expansion of the Medicaid program provided the Affordable Care Act stays in effect? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We're not here to talk about a federal program. I was happy when it passed, but I also am a legislator, and I will do whatever I feel like is in the best interest of my district. But we are being asked on this question how we would handle the expansion of the Medicaid program, or if it comes down to the state. And I do believe, and Governor Haslam has said this, that this is a decision that he and his administration are going to make, and then we'll work on it together.
Mr. White or Mr. Boozer, would you request a rebuttal?
Well, the question, it just says, as anticipated through the Affordable Care Act. That's why I talked about it.
1 minute.
Mr. Shepherd, have they sat down and actually looked at Tennessee's portion of this and how we will pay for it?
I've spent a lot of time reading this act. Obviously, it's very thick, and I haven't read completely every word. But the information I have is that the money will come from the federal government to the state to enact this program until 2016. Now, I'll be honest with you, none of us know right now what's going to happen to the Affordable Care Act. We have an election coming up on November the 6th that may decide that. But there are some really good papers that have been written about what Tennessee's responsibility is if it's in effect and if it comes back to the states. And that's what I'm addressing.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question. Mr. White, you will receive the second question first. Which do you think, this is question number 3B, which do you think ought to receive more attention? The recruitment of new companies to Tennessee or working with existing companies and helping them expand?
Well, I think both. And whenever you entice or try to entice companies to come in and new businesses to start with tax incentives and breaks here and breaks there and free land, whatever you do, I think that should be shared with the ones that are already here. And it should be just exactly like you offer the new companies. The people that are already here need to share that.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Boozer.
I agree, it's correct. It's both. But we do really need to concentrate on bringing more businesses into this state. Many businesses over the last few years are coming to Tennessee because this state is more friendlier to business than a lot of the northern states. And there's a lot of work we can do as representatives with each individual county commissions, try to find ways to entice these companies to come in and work on our infrastructure to strengthen it so that we can sustain these new plants.
Thank you, Mr. Boozer. Mr. Shepherd.
Thank you. Tennessee is a great state to bring a company to or expand a company in because we're a low-tax state. We have no income tax. We've recently passed the exemption on the hall income tax, and we've also passed the exemption on the inheritance tax. We're a friendly state to people who retire, and we're also a friendly state to businesses that want to do business in Tennessee. We have to do both, and I think as both of my colleagues have talked about, I can tell you in Dixon right now, we are number 2 in line for a very large plant that's coming to Dixon if it chooses us from out of state. And we have done everything that we know to do along with the state to get that company. We started out with 6 competitors for the plant, and we're down to 2, and we're supposed to hear something in a couple of weeks. But what we have to do, what I have to do as a representative, is I have to work with the other representative from this county and make sure that the state of Tennessee Economic Community Development give priorities, if they can, to rural districts, because the rural districts are where we need jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Mr. Boozer, 1 minute.
We need to look for all 3 counties as well, and I've been looking around here in Maury County. There are a lot of empty plants now. The Penske Building, Auto to Auto, Trade Winds, some very good facilities that we should look to try to bring these companies and show them. And yes, work with the other representative from this county and their commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Boozer. Would anyone else like a rebuttal? Very well, we'll move on. Mr. Boozer, you will have the next question. It's 4A. The governor and commissioner of education are big promoters of charter schools. Where do you stand with this issue?
I guess you would say that I'm for the charter schools. The grades seem to be doing very well in those that I've looked at so far. I would like to look into them a little more. I haven't had time. There's been so many other issues. But at this point, I would really like to look to charter schools for our areas.
Mr. Shepherd, you're next.
Thank you. Good question. In 2000, when I was first elected, the charter school issue was before the Education Committee, which at that time I was a member of. And I sought out my teachers' concerns about charter schools. And at that time, charter schools were primarily being legislated or talked about to replace failing schools in our state. I voted against it in subcommittee because I wasn't convinced that was the right thing to do. The next year in Tennessee, we were able to work out some of our concerns about charter schools, and actually I voted for it because at that time there were a lot of failing schools, particularly in some of the inner cities in Nashville and Memphis and Chattanooga, where a charter school would be the appropriate thing to do. I'm a pro-public education advocate. I support completely the teachers and the public education system. I would hate that we would even think about continuing to expand charter schools in our state and replace some of our very fine public institutions. And as long as it's done in some type of methodical, reasonable way, I'm going to support charter schools only when the public school systems are being also fairly taken care of.
Mr. White?
I agree with what he just said, and as long as they're fair with the public schools. The thing that I like about them is it gives closer connection with parents and their children, and you have it. And I think that's important even in our public schools, that the parents need to be more involved in the school system.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. The next question will go to Mr. Shepherd. It's 7B. Governor Haslam supports requiring internet retailers to collect sales tax. What is your position on taxing internet sales?
Well, I'm for it, and I'll be honest with you, we don't have at the state level a vote on that. It's currently at the federal level. We've already voiced our opinion that we would like to see the collection of internet sales, and that's in the, and there's some kind of a federal act that it has to be. But ladies and gentlemen, we are losing lots and lots of money in our state to internet sales. Now, I know all of us like to get on the internet and like to order things from LL Bean and places like that. But they're set up to actually collect sales tax and send it back to the states. But until the federal government actually acts and requires that of all the states or all the retailers that do not have a nexus in a state, then it's going to be hard for us to do. Now, I know Governor Haslam has talked about this at length, about how it would be very nice if Tennessee was able to receive the sales tax that's spent on the internet sales. And I think it would help our state economically. I think it would keep us from having to even think about raising taxes on anything. And I think it is a fair thing to do. These are people that are spending their money, and merchants in Tennessee collect sales tax, so why shouldn't we receive the sales tax back from the out-of-state companies?
Mr. White?
I don't like any taxes, but I do agree that we are losing tax money, and that it should be, I agree with Governor Haslam, it should be the same rate that our sales tax is here.
Mr. Boozer?
As I'm sure some of you have done, you purchase something on the internet, and if it's from a company here in Tennessee, you have to pay the tax. We have to pay it. So yes, people from out of state, when they purchase something from a Tennessee resident, I think, yes, we should be collecting those taxes because the Tennessee residents are already paying that themselves. So I would totally agree with this.
Thank you very much. And our last question tonight is 1A. Charles W. Pickering once said, "A healthy democracy requires a decent society. It requires that we are honorable, generous, tolerant, and respectful." After a primary season that left some voters concerned that attack ads between candidates overshadowed concrete plans to better their community, are you willing to denounce shady vote-seeking tactics and run a clean campaign? For extra credit, look to your nearest competition and tell the audience what you admire about them. And Mr. White, you are first.
Thank you, thank you. Well, since we went through this 2 years ago and it was very clean, there's nothing turns me off, and I'm sure a lot of you more, than this negative campaigning. I think it's terrible, and if you have to resort to those tactics to get elected, then you've got a problem. Tell what you believe in and where you stand, and let the voters decide. I don't need to know how many boats and Cadillacs David has or anything else. But I'm sure that if I'm supposed to ask him, well, I do admire him because that has the way he has been in the last election and this one too, and that's the way that I'll continue to be.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Boozer, you're next.
Yes, I denounce all bad. I think you'd see it, that the three of us, no one's run a very negative campaign up here. We've been quite cordial with each other. We keep running each other to events all through all the counties. And Mr. Shepherd here, I would like to thank him for 12 great years of service. He has been very good for our counties. I'm in this contest because I thought we needed to change. But he has been a very good representative, and I'm proud to know him.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Does anybody need a rebuttal for that? Oh, well, I'm so sorry, Mr. Shepherd. Please take your turn.
I was going to say, if you want to end on what Mr. Booster said, that'd be fine with me. I think people are sick of negative politics. Try this one. Can you hear me now? Okay. I think people are sick of negative politics. You know, I have been there 12 years, and I can tell you that I have worked on both sides of the aisle the entire time I've been there. There are partisan issues that come up, but the really, really important issues that you people probably feel like are very important, which we do too, we need to work together. We've got so many problems in our state. Fortunately, we're a very healthy state financially, but I think most of you get tired of seeing the negative ads on television. I certainly do. And I will be honest with you, if I ever get negative in a campaign that I'm running, somebody needs to come to me. Uncle JB, if you're out there, you come to me and you say, David, it's time for you to go home. Because I'm not a negative person, and I am not going to be negative against someone who's doing the best they can and trying to run for the same reasons that I am. So thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. White.
My only rebuttal is, where did you get all them signs?
Okay.
I made a comment that I really felt bad about my buddy Bobby Jocelyn, the sign man in Nashville. If I could have got David's account for him, he probably could have put one of his grandkids through college. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start our 2-minute closing remarks, and we will start with Mr. Boozer.
The main issue we've got to do is to bring jobs to all 3 counties of our district. And how we do that is that our representatives need to get together, work, go out, seek, and find these companies that want to move. Like I said before, many companies are looking to move, and they move to friendly states like Tennessee. So we have to get out there and maybe kiss a little, get these people to come in here. We had one of the greatest group of people in our district. My parents came here, retired to this area, and it's because of the kind of people we have in this district is why they came here and what brought me to stay down in this district. If you've lived in Nashville or Clarksville, you know the people here is why you're here. So that's what we need to do, work for this district harder. I'm sure we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boozer. Next, Mr. Shepherd.
Thank you. My dad taught me many years ago to work real hard. And Wayne's talking about signs. What a lot of you don't know is a lot of these I put up myself. If you've seen this old man around town putting up a sign, it's me. Now, I also have a lot of help that have recently started helping me, and I appreciate it. What was the question? Closing remarks. Good. I'm really delighted to be here, and it is humbling to have the number of you here that are here, because there are a lot of things that you want to do tonight. There are the Titans. There's obviously a vice presidential debate and other things that you've got. But you chose to come here and be an informed public, and that's all we as candidates can ask, that you give us a chance to sell ourselves to you. Now, I've spent a lot of money in the newspaper down here, and I've tried to draw a map in the newspaper so you can see the little sliver of the 69th district that's part of Murray County. And I've tried to tell you things about me and who I am. But there's nothing better than being personal right here, where you can see us and you can hear us speak and you can kind of hear what we're for. I am a Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat. My wife's a Democrat. And I'm also a person who believes in working closely with the other side to try to work together. And I think that's what people expect of us. And I appreciate you coming, and I'd appreciate your vote if you live in my district. Thank you.
Mr. White?
I am, just like most of you, really concerned and worried when you turn your TV on and you see that debt wheel spinning so fast that the last three numbers you can't even read them. It's a philosophy of life. We've got to get people back with morals and get to work. If you can work, you should work. And I believe that if we can cut out a lot of that and get people back to work, that a lot of our problems will start coming together. Playing tug of war, as David said, working together with both sides is so important. And I also would like to thank you for being here, and I'm a proud Republican. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Audience, if you would please join me in showing your appreciation.